What's up, guys? Welcome to my latest podcast. Today we're talking about or reacting to the Fed announcing that we can expect a rate drop in the near future. What does this mean to you? What does this mean to our industry? What does it mean in general? Let's talk about it. So for the last year and a half, we've been under, almost 2 years, we've been under a crisis as far as rates are concerned. Everything is very expensive, everything. Rates have affected home, obviously home purchases, car purchases, credit cards, everything's through the roof. Now, this was done on purpose by the Fed because if I remind you, they are fighting inflation, which inflation is the price we pay for the items we purchase on a daily basis to survive. Gas, food, everything got very expensive. Now, whether you want to say inflation is caused by corporate America, greed, cost of goods, whatever it may be, bottom line is the only way to fight inflation, the cost of what we buy on a daily basis, is the increase, I should say, of cost, is to create a recession. And the way we do it, we create a recession by raising rates. And what that does is people stop purchasing. They no longer borrow money to buy things. So by creating a recession, because things are so expensive rate-wise, people stop purchasing. It forces those corporations or those products to drop in price because in essence, nobody's buying them anymore. That's the idea behind higher rates, is that's how you battle inflation. So you have to kind of balance that, right? And if you really think about it, that's what high rates do, is it create a recession. Well, the numbers just came out and unemployment is much higher than expected. And the increase in jobs is much lower than expected. This is what was expected. Sooner or later, higher rates are going to filter down to employment. If nobody's buying cars, then that affects the people that make the cars. That affects the people that sell the cars. If nobody is using their credit cards to purchase items on Amazon or whatever, then the people that make it, they have to lower the price, they have to lay people off, that kind of stuff, right? So it filters down, and I think it has now. I think we've been in a recession for a year and a half. I think nobody wants to say it because it's a word nobody likes, but I think it's finally coming to fruition, and we're starting to see it in the numbers. Remember, the inflation numbers were down a month ago, and and now I almost guarantee they're going to be down even more in August when the numbers come out. So, what does all this mean? What this means is if everything goes as expected, the Fed will drop the prime rate, the cost of money to borrow money from the government, by 0.5%. Now, assuming that rate cut gets filtered down to the consumers, we're going to see lower interest rates on cars, lower interest rates on houses, which is going to start to spur the economy again because people can borrow and afford. So there's going to be two winners that will come from this in fourth quarter of 2024 and starting first quarter of 2025 and on. The first winner is going to be the first-time buyer. If you want to buy a house, 7% is just not doable, right? It's just not doable. No matter how much you want a house, a lot of people just aren't willing. Even if they can afford it, they're not willing to do it. But if all of a sudden it drops to 6.5%, 6%, it's not manageable. That's a few $100s a month. All of a sudden, it's something worth considering, okay? So that's the first benefit. The second benefactor of it is going to be all the people that bought in the last year and a half who have a higher interest rate. They are now going to have the opportunity to refinance, is what's going to happen, and drop your payment. So now they're going to be saving a few $100s a month. So those are the two biggest benefactors. But what I really wanted to talk about was more what it's going to do to our real estate market potentially. Everybody's been waiting for a crash, and we keep saying there's no crash coming because it's supply and demand. And there's not a lot of supply, and there's still demand. People still want to buy houses. The last video, or 2 videos ago I did, was talking about how 70% of renters want to buy. They just are unable to afford to buy at the moment with the high rates. So what we said was, when rates drop, what's going to happen is all those people that are on the sideline are going to flood the market and start buying. Unfortunately, that does not change necessarily the inventory. Unless we can get the rates low enough where the people who currently own a home and they have a 3 to 4% interest rate, and they are willing to now sell that home and get a 5.5-6% interest rate, they'll pull the trigger and they'll sell and buy, which will create more inventory. The problem is, I don't think that's going to create enough of those at 6.5. I think we're going to have to wait for a second rate drop at the in October, end of the year, for those people to start saying rates are now manageable enough. Remember, those people are rate locked. They want to sell their house and they want to buy another house for multiple reasons, but they can't justify going from a 3.5% interest rate to 7%. It's not going to happen. But what's going to happen to our market is, when the rates drop at least 0.5%, it's going to get flooded by buyers. And there's going to be more competition for the low supply of houses. That means it's going to be more expensive to buy that home. And what I mean by that is, you're not going to be able to get a bigger discount. You might have to add a little extra on top. You might have to not ask for those closing costs as you wanted to. You're not going to be able to ask for a cost from the seller to do the for you to buy down your rate. It's going to cost you more money, bottom line. So you need to be prepared. And the way you prepare is by being ready. Take the month of August to get pre-qualified. It doesn't matter at what rate. Just get pre-qualified for the amount and get a rate, because the rate changes. Know what those numbers are, and then wait for the rates to drop potentially in the end of August, most likely September. When they do, let's say that you're given an estimate of a 6 3/4 interest rate, right? And let's say that rates drop and it trickles down, and now it's 6.3, and that's the difference of $200 to $300. You jump all over it. You jump all over it and be the first, because if not, what's going to happen is you will be battling a lot more people to get that house. And trust me, doing this for 24 years, there's nothing more frustrating than making 10 offers and getting 10 declines. It just sucks. So do me a favor. Reach out to your lender. If you don't have one, I'm more than happy to help you with that. Reach out to your realtor. Get all your ducks in a row. And let's get this thing going.